We had looks maxing, we had money maxing, we had gym maxing, and now we have fun maxing. This term has been making rounds on social media lately, and it gives me a little bit of hope, because it feels like for the first time we have Gen Z role models who are healthy, disciplined, and successful, and at the same time positively and authentically portray what hardship looks like. And that leads you to the question of today's video. Is fun maxing just another maxing trend that will die out in a couple of months, or will it be a greater cultural shift that we see in my generation over the next couple of years? I think that the best way how to answer today's question is to understand what fun maxing even is, not only from a psychological perspective, but also from a philosophical one, which is why I would say, let's get straight to it. When we see people like Alyssa or Jack, we immediately think of fun, passion, and joy, while completely forgetting that, by the way, they also so happen to be professional athletes that are competing at the highest level of elite sport. To me, it's obvious. Fun maxing isn't about chasing pleasure, but rather about alchemizing struggle and hardship into flourishing. But hey, that's just my take. Let's see if the research supports this. There's a framework in psychology called self-determination theory, developed by Edward Dacey and Richard Ryan. And what it essentially argues is that not all motivation is created equal. It distinguishes between intrinsic motivation, so doing something because the activity itself feels meaningful and satisfying, and extrinsic motivation, so where the action is primarily driven by some external reward, whether that's money, status, praise, or simply avoiding guilt. But the deeper layer of this theory is the distinction between controlled motivation and autonomous motivation. Autonomous motivation includes intrinsic motivation, but it also includes external goals which you have genuinely internalized, meaning you experience the action as something self-endorsed rather than pressured. Take as a simple example, you have somebody in a sports tournament who's competing for a medal. They don't want the medal so that they have more status, but rather because they see the medal as something that symbolizes the mastery of their pursuit. One simple way to test this is to ask yourself, if nobody were watching, if there was no money or recognition tied to this pursuit, would I still feel compelled to do it? Would I still find value in the process itself? You can apply this to the way how you behave around your friends, to your job, to the sport that you're currently doing, and so on. Of course, now it's important to mention that we live in a world where money and status matter to some degree. I mean, our survival requires it. But what decades of research in sport and performance psychology show is that when athletes operate from autonomous motivation, so when they feel that what they are doing is chosen, aligned, and personally meaningful, they display higher persistence, better performance outcomes, and lower burnout rates over time. And that's important because autonomous motivation shouldn't be seen as something that rejects ambition and slowly leads to complacency, but rather as a motivation that integrates that ambition into something that feels self-directed rather than externally imposed. So when you see someone like Alyssa Liu skating with visible joy, or Jack Hughes smiling even in high-pressure moments, that's not them just randomly saying, I'm gonna put a smile on my face and be happy in front of 1,000, not yet millions of spectators. It's the result of alignment. So by being so skilled at and proud of what you're doing that you're able to make it look like fun. And that, one could argue, is the highest echelon of discipline. And if now somebody says, hey Vic, you're just talking so positively about them because you're a fan. Believe me, because of Jack Hughes, our hockey team lost a couple of weeks ago at the Olympics. So until now, fun maxing actually seems to be quite authentic and reasonable. Let's see if it stays that way. And that leads me to my favorite philosopher, Drake. I'm just joking. Nietzsche. You see, Nietzsche criticized something he called the ascetic ideal, most explicitly in On the Genealogy of Morality, but the theme also runs through Thespoke's Zarathustra as well. It's the belief that suffering elevates you morally, that self-denial makes you superior, and that expressing joy somehow makes you unserious. And if we're honest, we see a lot of that today as well, where in social media, discipline gets measured by how much you can sacrifice, how isolated you're willing to become, how many years you're willing to postpone joy for, and how convincingly you can tell yourself that misery now equals an amazing life later. And to be honest, this is how I thought at the age of 18 and 19. So I absolutely understand where this comes from. I understand that it works at least for a specific time period, but as I already mentioned this in so many videos, it will not lead to human flourishing over the long term. And Nietzsche seems to share this view. He is not impressed by the ascetic ideal. What he instead did was propose something radically different. In Ecce Homo he writes, my formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. What he's trying to say here is that greatness is not merely tolerating your struggle and surviving it, but affirming it so deeply that you would choose it over and over and over and over and over again. even the parts that especially hurt. For someone like Alyssa Liu, who dealt with intense mental pressure early in her career and stepped away before returning on her own terms, that affirmation means transforming what once caused burnout into something expressive and chosen. And for a hockey player like Jack Hughes, getting a tooth knocked out mid-game isn't a reason to call it quits. It's just part of the sport, part of something he values enough that the downsides don't outweigh the meaning of it. And as you clearly see here in this ideal from Nietzsche, hardship is not being put as something that should be avoided, but rather as something that should be accepted as part of the game and therefore is not to be resented. And I mean, I can talk about my own life here. Since I've realized that failure and discomfort is crucial to growth and adaptation, it's been much easier to endure the things I normally do not want to do. If it's squatting 225 on reps or running 10 miles twice a week. It may suck in the moment, but it turns me into a person I love being, and that alone is a reason why I should not resent these things. It's so funny. We all understand that in places like the gym, we will only make good progress if we train to moments in which we fail. Why not apply that to all other domains of life as well, such as our relationships, our job, and so on? But I digress. Now it's time for me to play devil's advocate because no one else is going to do it for me. There's one issue with funmaxing, namely that it is not accessible for everyone. Just look back at self-determination theory. It basically argues that humans perform best not when they're forced, but when free psychological needs are met. Autonomy, so when you feel like you chose this pursuit. Competence, so when you can see yourself improving at it. And last but not least, relatedness, so you feeling connected through the pursuit. Not everybody is able to satisfy these free needs. You see, a lot of people are forced to live lives they do not want to live, mainly out of financial, political, or cultural reasons. But I don't see this as a threat to funmaxing or a reason why we should abandon it, but rather as an opportunity to make it accessible to as many people as possible. Because every human deserves the right to live a flourishing life. So to answer the question of today's video, whether funmaxing is just some temporary trend like all the other maxing trends, or is it actually something serious that will shape the younger generation for the next couple of years, I think we have to say the following. It's obvious that the trend will only last if there are people supporting it, if there are people living it. But at the moment, things actually look quite good. I mean, not only because the psychology and philosophy supports it, but also if you look at the people who are living the trend right now, there is so much demand for it. There's a reason why these people are blowing up on social media. I already mentioned some of the examples in the video, but there are also other examples you can think of. And hey, you can mention some of your own examples, some of your own people you look up to that kind of embody this ideal in the comments. People want this. So if this trend gains more attention and at the same time we make it more accessible to Gen Z, our future could actually look brighter than we expect. I mean, I'm gonna play my part and spread awareness on topics on how to beat your phone addiction and how to leverage your nervous system to be a more authentic version of yourself and live an overall more flourishing life. And you should play your part as well, which is why get to work, don't resent struggle, and start creating a life that you're actually able to enjoy. And even if this process takes years, still do it. Your future self will be proud of you. And with that, see you in the next one.